Have your fantasy teams been struggling this year? Or perhaps you've been doing pretty well but want to put yourself over the top? Then make sure to visit our friends over at Finish First Fantasy Advisors. They are the premier one-on-one consulting firm that specializes in providing you with expert support to help guide you to the championship. You will be matched with one of their expert advisors to provide you with the season-long insight for your redraft, dynasty, or DFS formats. Their advisors will contact you weekly to answer all of your questions and provide you the needed information to get to the next level. Set up a free 15-minute consultation by emailing them at info@finishfirstfantasy.com or by visiting them at www.finishfirstfantasy.com. That's www.finishfirstfantasy.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrood. I am your host and the founder of SkullKing Sports. Welcome to the last episode of this podcast before we get started with the 2020 season. We are going to go over some of the news that's happened in the last few days. Mainly the stuff that's going to be the most relevant for fantasy football. There will be a couple other things we may mention. And then as a final little thing before we get into the season, I'm going to give some tips for surviving fantasy football in the year 2020. So I hope you guys are ready for a fun fantasy football season. I am definitely excited for this year. It's nice to see that we're actually going to have the NFL season after everything that happened with Major League Baseball and them threatening to not play, with all of the arguments between the Players Association and the owners, and just seeing what happened with sports and whether or not they were actually going to play. It's nice to see that we are going to have an NFL season. I'm especially excited this year. Another year in the Fantasy Pros expert consensus accuracy contest. So we'll see if I can improve on how I did last year, finishing 99th overall for the season in Fantasy Pros out of about 135 to 140 experts. So let's see if I can improve that. And I've also been invited to play in the Fantasy Pros expert DFS contest. So a lot of DFS guys playing in that on DraftKings. So should be a lot of fun this year. This will be my second league in a DFS type of format. So I am still learning DFS and how to best construct rosters in that format. So like I said, I'm really looking forward to this season. A lot of learning, a lot of growing in fantasy football, as well as just with everything that we are doing with SkullKing Sports. Really excited about how this organization is growing and what we're doing to bring you the sports news and everything that you guys are looking for, as well as the fantasy advice you guys need. So I believe that is it for the beginning. I want to, again, thank Finish First Fantasy Advisors. That is our main sponsor for this show tonight. They are a premium fantasy advice website. What they do is they set you up with an advisor who emails you throughout the season, giving you start sit advice, trade advice, and I believe you can also get a playoff guarantee that if you don't make the playoffs, you'll get I believe most of your money back. So make sure to check them out, finishfirstfantasy.com, to find out more. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the news for the 2020 fantasy football season. Let's check out what's happened in these last few days. All right, starting off, it looks like for the Chargers, they expect Mike Williams to miss most of September with the AC joint injury in his shoulder. Obviously, this is going to make more opportunity for Keenan Allen, not that he needed much more. I got to be honest, I'm not a big fan right now of Keenan Allen in that offense, and that's mainly due to the fact that Tyrod Taylor's the quarterback. Last time we saw Tyrod Taylor as a starting quarterback, he lasted 2.5 games, and then Baker Mayfield took over for him. So Tyrod has had up and down years as a starter in this league. I have not been all that impressed overall with what he has done. He's been replaced multiple times as the starting quarterback. So whether it was with Buffalo or with Cleveland, or we'll see how long it takes for them to go with the rookie with the Chargers in LA. So until they make the switch away from Tyrod Taylor, I'm having a hard time really trusting anyone in that offense except for maybe Austin Eckler. So moving on, Adrian Peterson has signed a 1-year deal with the Lions. From what I have seen among all of this, it actually looks like the Lions may actually get him some good work even in week 1. They ended up placing running back Bo Scarborough on injured reserve. And so because of that, with the new rules for this year, injured reserve is a minimum of 3 weeks instead of what was a minimum of 6 in regular years. So Scarborough for now is going to miss at least 3 weeks. We'll see what kind of happens there. But Matt Patricia actually said of Adrian Peterson that he will most likely be used in week 1. The expectation is that he gets plenty of runs right off the bat. So that's where we are at with him. Austin Eckler actually said he sees new running back Josh Kelly as very talented, and keeps getting better. There could be a 1-2 punch between Eckler and Kelly, which could be really interesting to see there. Regardless if Jackson is ready to go or not, Justin Jackson is ready to go or not, we expect Kelly to be the one who gets more touches. So even though Jackson has missed some time with injury in practice, it looks like Kelly has basically passed him up and is the number 2 guy in that offense. So definitely got to be watching in the sleeper, especially if you're in a deeper league. Kelly's definitely a guy that I would be keeping an eye on as you're getting into deep leagues, deep in the drafts. He's most likely, if you're in a 12-team or less, even 14-team or less, he's probably going to be available. This year, I'm playing in a 16 and 18-team league. Those 2 leagues, he has gone in both. So let's see. Moving on. Josh Rosen signed with the Bucs to on their practice squad to learn behind Tom Brady. We'll see if that helps him out at all. Ebron is a mismatch chess piece for the Steelers. This is definitely interesting. We'll kind of see how this works out for him. According to beat writer Nick Farabaugh, he said that Eric Ebron will be used all over the formation and could be heavily targeted this season. He posted to Twitter that Ebron allowed the team to feel comfortable going 5 wide receivers since he's almost like another himself. He added that Ebron would be flexed out all over the place as a mismatched chess piece and is going to get a lot of targets this year. Vance McDonald, who was the tight end last year, is now with, I believe, he is with the Detroit Lions now. Only ran a pass route last year on 41% of his 2019 snaps. Ebron has regularly run routes on more than 70% of his snaps, could emerge as an every-week fantasy option in 12-team leagues sooner rather than later. I will believe that when I see it. I'm not totally convinced of that yet. So I think that Ebron could be a deep sleeper. I'm just not. I'm waiting on that one. So the Dolphins have officially named Ryan Fitzpatrick as their Week 1 starting QB versus New England. Tua will back up, and it could be interesting to see how fast they move to Tua after this game or in the middle of this game. All depends on if Ryan Fitzpatrick can be Ryan Fitzmagic or Ryan Fitztragic. So again, it's always an adventure watching him to see what happens. But usually in the years that he starts off as the starter, it doesn't last too long. So let's see. Lamar Miller and Devonta Freeman are both still looking for teams. Carson Wentz is back to a full participant in practice this week. No concern with the franchise QB. There's a lot of debate about Carson Wentz and whether or not he is a solid fantasy asset, if he can be a quarterback that can really get the job done. And here's my take on Carson Wentz. For me, and with most people, it's not his talent. His talent is not the issue. When he's healthy, he is a very, very good quarterback. We saw that in 2017, the year that the Eagles ended up winning the Super Bowl with Nick Foles taking over at the end of the year. So I believe it was 2017. He is a very talented quarterback. The obvious issue is whether or not he can stay healthy. He gets hit a lot. He's had to deal with some concussion issues, which can always be troubling for a football player. So just things to watch. I think that, at least to start off, Carson Wentz could be a solid quarterback for fantasy. But he's one of those guys, if Carson Wentz is my option to take in a draft, I'm definitely drafting a solid backup. And I never draft two quarterbacks, so that should tell you about what I'm actually doing with Carson Wentz. So, Damien Harris is still absent from practice with a hand issue. I believe that he actually had surgery on a finger, looking like he may miss the first couple weeks. I believe, I can't remember if they actually put him on IR or not, so I'll have to check that. But I believe they actually did, so I think he's going to miss the first 3 weeks. So for a guy who was looking like he possibly could have taken over the starting role, does not look like that is going to be the case, obviously, for the first 3 weeks. The Patriots, I believe, pulled up Justin Johnson or J.J. Johnson or whatever his name is to be to take his spot on the roster for now off the practice squad. We'll see. Again, I think once Harris comes back, I think it could be he could be playing quite often. I think he was definitely one of my sleeper picks for this year. Doug Marrone of the Jacksonville Jaguars says it will be a while before Armstead plays. Obviously, this is not great news for those of you who, even like me, picked up Armstead in drafts. Obviously, he is on the COVID-19 list. Says that it'll be a while before he is ready to play. Armstead opened the camp on the team's reserve COVID list, was eventually removed for a few practices, then returned for a second stint ahead of the regular season opener. With no timeline for his return, all of Devine Ozigbo, Chris Thompson, and James Robinson will work in a committee in the interim. I believe James Robinson was actually named the starting quarterback for the team, or starting running back for the team this week. So Thompson remains the likeliest candidate to offer immediate value in negative game scripts in week one, whereas Ozigbo is a safe bet to lead the team in carries. Armstead can be universally dropped across redraft leagues. So obviously, it's going to be a while before Armstead comes back. I have him in one league where I was able to put him on the IR. So that that's the one good thing about having an IR there. So I was able to hold on to him. I don't know. I may end up dropping him. Luckily, having the IR spot helps. So moving on, we got to that. McVay is optimistic about Henderson playing with his hamstring injury. Darrell Henderson has been dealing with the leg issue. If he is good to go, McVay added that's a 3-back rotation you feel really good about. Also said the team will be asking a lot out of rookie Cam Akers right away this season. I still think that Akers is the guy to own in that backfield. Says here he should be valued as a high-end RB2 with Malcolm Brown soaking up carries behind him. If available, fantasy players can't possibly trust Henderson in his first game back from injury, obviously. So, again, I'm of the thought that Akers is the guy to own. Henderson is a backup at best. So, according to the Bengals head coach, AJ Green is a full go for Sunday. Hopefully, this will be a healthy season for AJ Green. I like AJ Green when he is healthy. I think he is a solid. He is a solid wide receiver when healthy. Of course, he is getting up there in age, so we'll see. Again, we'll have to see how long he can hold up for a season. All the various reports have said that he is developing a solid chemistry with Joe Burrow. So, let's see. The Raiders are placing QB Marcus Mariota on injured reserve. He'll miss a minimum of 3 weeks to start the season. Vegas has Nathan Peterman as its current backup to Derek Carr. So they also signed Deshaun Kaiser to the practice squad. So it shows you how bad it is for quarterbacks right now in Las Vegas. Let's see. Oh, sorry. It was the J.J. Taylor was who the Patriots signed off their practice squad as Damien Harris was put on IR. Taylor apparently had a great camp, so he is definitely a guy to kind of keep an eye on for this season as well. Let's see. A.J. Dillon is expected to be Green Bay's running back 3 early in 2020. We will see if he can pass up Williams on the depth chart. Aaron Jones obviously is their number 1, and so we'll kind of, again, that's something to kind of watch. But I think Jones is the obvious pick there. I don't have him quite as high as a lot of people do. I have him around running back 10. I know he finished as a running back 1 of the top 5, I believe, is where he finished in most formats. We'll kind of see how that goes. I'm a little bit lower on him this year, so that's me. The Saints and Alvin Kamara are extremely close to a new extension, which means that the Saints are not all that worried about the back cortisone injections that he was getting. Steelers have a super deep and diverse running back group, says Mike Tomlin. We are not opposed to utilizing all of their talents. At the same time, though, he says there is no question about who our bell cow is. Our bell cow is James Conner, and he is our primary ball toter. I mean, for me, this is great for James Conner. I like James Conner. I've drafted him in one league. He fell to, in someone that I was helping with their draft, he fell to them. Was a solid pickup. I like Conner if you can get him late enough. Yes, I know we're dealing with a lot of injury history there, but I still think that Conner is productive when healthy. So if you're willing to put up with the possibility of injuries, you can pick him up maybe as your running back 2, maybe even your flex option, depending on how late you can get him. I think that he's going to be a solid player when healthy. So I usually don't like handcuffing my own running backs. He is one that I could see someone being willing, if the roster is deep enough, picking up their number 2, which you'd have a wild guess as whether it's Benny Snell or McFarland or Samuels. So, but solid news for those of you who are James Conner's truthers, who believe that he will be the guy and can stay healthy. I'm sure many of you heard about wide receiver Deandre Hopkins' contract extension. He still had 3 years on his deal, managed to get 2 extra years thrown on. Those 2 years will make him, during those 2 years, the highest paid non-quarterback ever, $27.25 million per year, with $42.75 million guaranteed at signing. So that means that over the next 5 years, his average salary is right below $20 million. I think it's like $19.5. So honestly, I mean, over the 5 years, it's a solid contract. we'll kind of see towards the end of that contract, or the last 2 years of that 5-year deal. Just if he's still that productive, which he should be in the Arizona Cardinals offense. Bucs head coach Bruce Arians says that Leonard Fournette will have a solid role in Week 1 against the Saints. He's a bright guy, and he picked it up quickly. Says obviously he can't do everything; it'll be situational. I think that this is great news for those who drafted Leonard Fournette before he ended up getting dropped by the Jaguars. I think that I do have Fournette in one league, and saw him drop like crazy in another league where I was helping a guy draft. And so if you can get him at a value, I think you're in great shape. If you got him, obviously it may be a little bit hard to play him Week 1. But once we kind of see what happens there with that offense, I think that that Fournette could be in for a big season this year. The last couple things for tonight, the Browns and Kareem Hunt have agreed to a 2-year extension. I believe the 2 years were worth $13.5 million with $8.5 million guaranteed. So the Browns have him under control for 3 years, which is interesting because they also have Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb is going to be coming up on a contract extension, I believe, in 2 years. Let's see, he's played 2 years in the league, I believe, so he's got 2 years plus the option for a 5th. Oh, he's a second. I'm not sure. So we'll kind of see. But interesting that they're paying this much for Kareem Hunt. I know that it's going to get a little tight with the salary cap over these, this year, next year, because of the loss of revenue with COVID-19. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that works with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb and what they want to do with Kevin Stefanski in that offense. So Brandon Cooks did not practice today due to a quad injury. He was limited on Monday. Something to monitor before the Thursday night game where the Texans will be playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. And last but not least, Broncos pass rusher Von Miller suffered a lower leg injury in practice today. Looks like the MRI indicated a season-ending tendon injury. He is going to Green Bay to get a second opinion on Thursday. So for those of you in IDP leagues, Von Miller is now no longer available for this season. And we'll see how that affects the Denver defense. I know that they've been building up and really solidifying that defense over the last couple of years. When you lose a guy like Von Miller, that can make a big difference just because of the way that he is able to disrupt the line of scrimmage and make things difficult for quarterbacks. So, all right, that is it for the news and notes. We're going to now get into just a few tips that I've got for moving into the 2020 fantasy football season. And really, these, a lot of you have probably heard these things. This is just kind of a gentle reminder as we get into this season, especially with how everything has gone in the year 2020. I think that these are just good reminders. So my tip number 1, don't take it too seriously. I understand that there are a lot of guys and ladies, men and women, who play in money leagues for fantasy football. And if you are putting in, if you're putting so much money into fantasy football that you are, that you panic about how your team is doing, you're playing for too much money. I don't mind playing fantasy for money. Normally I play in 1, maybe 2 $50 leagues. And I know that's my max. That's the most I can do. After that, I'll play in a bunch of free leagues just for the experience and to kind of work with rosters, work in different fantasy platforms, and that sort of thing. But fantasy football, especially this year, fantasy football should just be a fun distraction from all the stuff that we've had to deal with in 2020. And so that's just kind of a little tip from me. Don't take it too seriously. Enjoy it. My favorite league that I've ever played in, I've had to take a couple years off of it just with various family things and stuff. My favorite league is the one with a bunch of guys that I used to work with, that we would all get together at my buddy's house and do the draft. I'm looking forward to getting back in that league next year. But that was always my favorite league to play in, because we had fun at the draft. We had a big group text. We were always talking crap to each other. And we did take it. I mean, we took it a little bit seriously, but at the same time, we had some fun with it. So, enjoy playing fantasy football, watching the game. So, number 2, this is kind of a random one. Expect the unexpected. I think this is especially poignant for 2020. The year of COVID, of murder hornets, of land hurricanes in Iowa. Let's see, what else have we had in the year 2020? It's been just crazy. So again, expect the unexpected. Guys are going to get injured. Be ready to know who the next guy is in the depth chart to be able to go and get on the waiver wire. So, again, expect the unexpected. Number 2, don't be afraid to grab someone off of waivers. One of the things that I've learned in fantasy football is don't be afraid to go after someone, even if you really like someone on your bench. Opportunity often outweighs talent. Just because a guy is talented, if he's not getting the opportunity, that could be a problem. It's if the guy who's getting the opportunity to play is more likely to score the fantasy points. So that's in so many cases, opportunity has to be the dominating factor. Now, again, there are also some times where you're looking at a guy or he's got the opportunity, but he's really crappy. He's going to play a lot, but the team isn't very good. Again, take everything as a whole, but opportunity really has to be a huge factor in making your decisions about starting, sitting, and making waiver wire moves. So number 2, the number 2 kind of to go along with this one, don't hold on to someone too long. I have held on to players expecting that they were going to be, take over for a guy 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks into the season. Missed out on some guys that I could have grabbed off of waivers because the opportunity was there for them. Don't be afraid to drop a sleeper after like 3 or 4 weeks if they're not even getting the opportunity to play. If it's a guy that needs an injury to happen in order to play, drop them. Find guys that are getting opportunities to play that, maybe they're already playing a little bit and an injury would just push them into, from a wide receiver 3 to a wide receiver 2, or running back 3 to a running back 2, or a possible flex option. Those are the kind of guys you want to be looking for. So if someone on your bench just isn't getting the playing time, drop them and find someone who is. So, and the last thing I want to go over for this episode before we get started with the season is the whole start your studs mentality. Now, I am a big fan of Brad Evans of the FTN, the Fantasy something network. He started his own network now that deals with fantasy and betting, sports betting. And his philosophy is start your studs is one of the laziest methods and theories of fantasy football. And I take that with a grain of salt. In a sense, I agree. If you're playing in leagues that are 12, 14, 16, 18 team, 14 team leagues and up, start your studs because you draft them in the first couple rounds. Unless something is happening where they're not getting the playing time, they're just not producing, then you move on. After a regular base. But if you're playing in smaller leagues, and I am not going to dog anyone for playing in a 6-team league. I'm not going to dog anyone for playing in an 8-team league. If that's how you enjoy playing fantasy football, then play fantasy football in an 8-team league. Enjoy it. again, don't take it too seriously. So as part of that, if you are playing in an 8-team league or even a 10-team league, start your studs doesn't necessarily have to be the way to go. You can make moves. You can sit guys that on any larger of a league would be an automatic start. You can mess around with those a little bit because the teams are so stacked in 8, and obviously in 6, but in 8-team leagues and even in 10-team leagues, they can be a little bit stacked. You don't need to just start these guys every week. You can play with it a little bit depending on matchups, and again, matchups and opportunity. So, again, start your studs can be a lazy way of playing, and it could work out for you. At the same time, someone could decide, you know what, I'm going to sit my wide receiver 2 or my wide receiver 1. It's not a great matchup. He's going up against the wide receiver's going up against a star defensive corner who's shut down everyone this year. I'm starting someone else this week, and it could pay off for you. So I am never going to dog anyone for making certain decisions. You make your decisions. If you want to play risky, play risky. You want to play safe, play safe. But don't knock anyone for playing their roster different than you. Everyone does this differently, and everyone can be successful doing it differently. So that's my little rant there. So again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to the show tonight. We are ready for the season. I can't wait to get this started. Make sure to go to SkullKingSports.com. You can check out the Fantasy Football tab, and under there you will find our rankings for Week 1. Make sure to follow us not only on Facebook here on the podcast, but also on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and YouTube. We hope that you guys enjoy the advice that we're giving you this year. Again, I'm going to try to get some of our staff as well as other co-hosts and other guests on the show for you guys. Again, good luck in the 2020 season, and we'll talk to you later. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.